Hi everybody, and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Relationships, and it's by user Deleted. My wife, 33 female, and I, 36 male, have been asked by my wife's parents, 60s male and female, to take over raising my wife's sister's children, 8 and 6 female. I already have 3 kids, 10, 7, 5, female, male, female, and feel like I'll lose my mind if I have to take them, but crushed with guilt if I don't. Please help. I'm really in a bind here and desperate for ideas. I am 36 years old. I have been married for 12 years to my wife who is 33. We have a 10-year-old girl, a 12-year-old boy, and a 5-year-old girl. My wife has a younger sister who is an absolute train wreck and a basket case. She is 29 and has already been married and divorced twice. She has borderline personality disorder and is an alcoholic. She has 2 girls, 8 and 6, from her marriages, 1 from each. Both of her husbands were abusive losers to her and my nieces. The first husband split as soon as she gave birth to niece number 1, and no one ever saw or heard from him again. The second husband is a drug addict who makes a hobby out of being unemployed so he doesn't have to pay child support. Because of my sister-in-law's wild and crazy mood swings, life-ending attempts, and alcoholism, she lost custody of her daughters, and my wife's parents, who are in their 60s, have been taking care of and raising them for 3 years now. My wife and I visit her parents quite often, and we are very close with them. We also see my nieces, and they really are sweet girls, although they do act out sometimes, but who can blame them? Recently, more family tragedy struck. My mother-in-law has been diagnosed with terminal cancer and will have to start radiation and chemotherapy immediately. My father-in-law has arthritis and is starting to lose his hearing and sight. They recently approached us and asked if we would assume custody and raise my nieces because they are too old and sick to do it anymore. While my wife wanted to immediately say yes, I asked if we could please have time to talk it over and discuss it, to which they graciously said for us to take our time. Now, while I genuinely love my nieces and my heart breaks for their situation, I do not want to raise them. I'm breaking into a sweat and fighting off a panic attack just thinking about it. I have a full-time job and 3 young and very needy children. My wife, bless her, is a very good mother, has a part-time job to help supplement our income, and is a wonderful and supportive partner, but she is zero help around the house. She's terrible at keeping the house clean and is an awful cook, so after I come home from work, I have to cook dinner and make sure the house is tidy. I have my kids help out with the chores, but of course they can only do so much. Then I have to spend time and play with my children, help with homework, etc. My wife helps them get ready for bed and reads to them while I do the dishes. Then I have to make time for my wife. I am exhausted and overwhelmed. My weekends are spent cleaning inside and out and doing family activities. While my wife has promised to help with our nieces, realistically I know a majority of the responsibility will fall to me. I can't handle more stress. I can't handle the chaos of 2 more young children who demand attention and time. I'm already spread thin spending time one-on-one with each of my children. How can I possibly give it to 2 more? That's 2 more mouths to feed, 2 more children to clothe, shelter, and provide for, and educate. And we will be getting 0 financial assistance from the deadbeat sister-in-law and her 2 ex-husbands. The thing is, my wife has no other siblings, and I am an only child. I don't think there is anyone else who can take these children. My in-laws can no longer raise them. We are all that is left. The only other option is foster care. I would feel awful putting my nieces in foster care, but I just don't think I can do it. I feel completely paralyzed. I've already had 2 breakdowns over this decision, out of sight from my wife and children. I'm depressed, I have no appetite, I feel like a failure as a man, as a father, and as a family member. I can't sacrifice my children's well-being for my nieces. I won't be able to be a good father or uncle to my nieces, and I know I'll just be going through the motions with my own children if I take on any more responsibility. But I don't know how I'll live with myself if I let my nieces go into the system. I feel borderline like ending it all by this point, but I'm trying to keep it together for the sake of everyone. I don't know what to do or think. Please help. Oof, OP, you are in such a pressured situation. I am so sorry that you're going through this. Clearly the responsibility is overwhelming you, and I do think you need to talk to your wife. From any of these different stories, we know that communication is key. And if your wife wants to take in your nieces, and you feel it would be the right thing to do, then you need to share the burden with your partner, and maybe even include the kids that can help around to do something as well. The thing is, you have two options like you're saying. They either go to foster care or you guys take the responsibility. I absolutely understand you not wanting your nieces to go into the system, but you can't take this all on yourself. At some point something's gotta give, and I think you need to ask your family to pitch in. Unfortunately, I don't know what other advice I could give OP because it does seem like a rock and a hard place situation. So what would you guys do if you were in his shoes? What kind of advice would you give him? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. Zizimu says, a few thoughts which you may want to consider. 1. Your sister lost custody. Your in-laws were granted guardianship. So first, consult an attorney for the exact details, but if you take over guardianship of the girls via the foster system, you'd get paid by the state for their care. 2. With the additional burden of 2 dependents, you may qualify for state aid like food stamps, thus freeing up a bit of cash for other necessities. 3. Get on Craigslist in the services household section and hire yourself someone to come in and clean weekly. These people offer their services for between $15 to $20 an hour, and a decent one should be able to have your home sparkling in 3 to 4 hours. 4. If you go through the system to take in your nieces, you'd also probably qualify for respite care. That's where the girls go visit another foster family on some weekends, which would give you free time to relax, focus on just your 3, etc. 5. Your kids aren't doing enough chores. I tell you this as a mother who raised 3 kids. Your kids aren't doing enough chores. Every one of them should have a bunch of chores, even the youngest. If you look online, there are an absolute ton of sites with list of age-appropriate chores. Use them. 6. Stop making dinner when you come home from work. There are hundreds of sites online that show you how to spend 1 day a month prepping meals for an entire month's worth of dinners. And tons of those meals are crock-pot meals, where you dump them out of a freezer bag and into the crock-pot before you leave for work in the morning, and you have a delicious dinner ready when you get home. Cooking this way is cheaper, easier, and less stressful than whatever you are currently doing, guaranteed. Your wife is probably smart enough to handle doing the actual grocery shopping for your day of cooking, so give her that part, and get that woman involved in couponing. Finally, you're in a panic because this is all so overwhelming. Stop and take a breath. Take another. Now, stop reacting and begin researching the things I've talked about here. This situation isn't some unsurmountable tragedy you can't handle, not when you step back and start looking at it through logic instead of emotion. You have the tools to make this work, you've just got to realize it. Wombatzilla says, I think you need to tell your wife that she needs to step up more in the home if you're going to take care of these kids. Also, she needs to learn to cook, man. She's 33 and only working part-time. There's no reason for her to not spend some time cleaning the house and doing some cooking. Lots of cooking is easy and she can look up YouTube videos. Crap, I'm 28 and I just learned a better way to chop up onions and I eat onions like every damn day. Of course, she doesn't mind the idea of taking on 2 more kids because so far she's had it easy peasy with the 3 kids you already have. That's cool that she's a great mother, but you guys need to set up a real system that she needs to follow to help take some of the pressure off of you, even if you don't end up taking care of these other kids. Think about the ideal situation here in your mind. Even if your wife suddenly cooked dinner every night and kept the house clean, would you be willing to take on 2 more kids or not? It's okay to say no, this is a huge responsibility. But if you do say yes, you have to have had a very in-depth conversation with your wife about your expectations of her first. Way to Know says, no matter what you decide, your wife needs to learn basic cleaning and cooking skills. It's not rocket science. The partner without a full-time job should do the majority of the work around the home. No wonder the thought of even more mouths to feed and cleaning makes you break out in a sweat. OP's edit. I sincerely appreciate all the replies. I'm reading all of them. And aside from one a-hole, these are all wonderful suggestions. I feel more calm now reading these responses than I have ever since my in-laws asked this of us. I'm going to take a day off work and just relax, go to a coffee shop and read a book. Then, I'm going to have a talk with my wife about everything and discuss options from there. Well, Opie certainly got some really good advice, particularly from that first poster. Wow, in-depth and fantastic. So now let's move on to the update to see what happened after this. I told my wife I desperately needed some time to myself, so she was a complete sweetheart and watched the kids for me while I went to my favorite coffee shop and for the first 4 hours did nothing but drink cappuccinos and read. I then started to think about what to do about the problem with my nieces. It suddenly occurred to me that even though they had deadbeat fathers, perhaps the parental side of their family could be of assistance. That night I got home after my wife had put all the kids to bed and told her we needed a talk. I completely lost it and broke down sobbing. I told her I could not take her nieces. I told her how stressed I was with work, how exhausted I felt every single day doing nothing but working and being a dad. I told her she was a good wife and mom, and I appreciated her having a part-time job and taking care of the kids when I was at work, but I was starting to resent how I had to pick up her slack and cook and clean because she wouldn't do it. I told her I considered ending my life because I just couldn't handle the pressure of having to fix her sister's mistake, and that I already felt like a failure as a husband and a father and was sick of life. My wife was white as a ghost, and she didn't argue or get defensive, not once. She just gave me a big hug and started crying too, and said she was so sorry. She had no idea how stressed I was, how miserable, that I hid it so well. Most shockingly, she admitted she had grown lax in her housekeeping, and that in retrospect she was just so tired from dealing with the kids all day and working to boot. Cleaning and cooking hadn't really been at the forefront of her mind, since I'd been quietly making up for her slack and not saying anything. She had just let it go unchecked. I told my wife there was no way I could take responsibility for 2 more children when I couldn't trust her to pull her load at the house. I said I was truly heartbroken for our nieces, but that my children came first, and I could not jeopardize being a good father to them or have them lack in any facet of life because of them. I said a decision needed to be made soon, and there was simply no way I could trust her to prove she would change and start helping out more, and that we needed counseling, because I was ready to end my life over how dreary and stressful things were. I also brought up we had no guarantees the girl wouldn't take after their parents, particularly her sister, as teenagers and make all our lives miserable. She said she hadn't thought of that, and again how sorry she was and that I was right. She agreed immediately to counseling and that the dynamic of our home needed to change. That taking our nieces was out of the question when our own family needed some serious fixing. I could tell that my talk of ending my life terrified her, and she was willing to do anything to make things better. She begged me not to go through with it, and then started sobbing and said she couldn't live without me, and to please not leave her and the kids. We decided to talk about options for our nieces after getting some rest. The next morning, we took the kids to the park, and while they were running around on the playground, we discussed what to do about the girls. I brought up the girls' paternal families and asked if she knew any of them. She said no, but she could ask her sister for names and/or contact information. Long story short, we found out Dad A had a brother, a married sister with kids, and his parents. Dad B had a married brother, 2 sisters, one married with no kids, and the other with a boyfriend and 2 children, and his parents as well. My wife and I sent emails to all, introducing ourselves and laying out our niece's plight. That their maternal grandparents could no longer care for them, and that we were in no position to do so, and were reaching out to see if they could be willing to take the girls who would have to be put in the foster system if we couldn't find someone. Dad A's unmarried brother and Dad B's unmarried sister with kids never responded. Dad A's sister, Dad B's brother, and parents gave us various responses, which boiled down to, "Sorry, but we can't or don't want to." Dad A's parents and Dad B's married sister without kids both gave us yeses. But here was the tricky part. They were only willing to take 1 child. Dad A's parents were sweet and polite, but firm in saying they had no interest in raising another man's child or dealing with potential drama from another baby daddy or baby daddy's family. Dad B's sister was also kind and said as much as she would like to, she and her husband were barely making ends meet and simply couldn't afford more than one child. My wife and I were also in counseling at this point. We debated for a while about whether to just take our nieces or put them in homes where they would be loved and wanted, but at the cost of splitting them up. I'm sure many Redditors will bash me for our final decision, but it was with our therapist's suggestion we finally decided our marriage and home life was too much on the rocks and had not had enough time to heal to take on the huge responsibility of raising my sister-in-law's children. Another long story short, we got my in-laws in contact with the other set of grandparents and Dad B's sister, and they are now in the middle of adoption and custody details. But from what I've heard is that the grandparents of niece A and the aunt and uncle of niece B will keep in contact and arrange in-person play dates and Skype sessions so the sisters can stay in contact with each other and not suffer permanent separation. We also told them that we still very much want to be in our nieces' lives and would be willing to see them and have them for a couple of days a few times a month or help in any way we could. This was a very hard decision to make for my wife and me, but ultimately we feel we made the right one for us. We are still in therapy and are doing much better. My wife is a much bigger help around the house and bought a book of easy recipes tailored to terrible cooks like her. We also took Zizmu's suggestions and started doing a bunch of crockpot meals. It's cut down on labor and cleanup tremendously. In therapy, I made a list of chores I'd like her to have done before I get home from work to minimize my stress. The list has really helped because she can focus on one checkbox at a time and has a visible reminder so she doesn't forget. Also, thanks to Zizmu, we realized we were being way too easy on the kids and gave them a chore chart as well they need to check off, with allowance on Saturday if they finished everything and didn't rush through it. Seriously, thank you so much for your post, Zizmu. You had a lot of real helpful suggestions even though we didn't end up taking our nieces. Our marriage isn't fully healed, but it's certainly recovered, and I even look forward to coming home from work now. My wife really is a saint and a sweetheart, and I feel like I'm falling in love with her again. A quick note to say the hate on this website was absolutely insane. People calling my wife lazy and horrible and saying she did nothing all day and was probably having an affair. When I stated in my first post my wife was a wonderful woman, I meant it. Having 3 kids full-time and a part-time job is a lot of work. She was easily distracted and tired, and cleaning just stopped being a priority. Since I always stepped up to cook and clean and never communicated my feelings, she had no way of knowing I was falling apart. She readily admitted her fault in the failure of our marriage and has truly shown she is fully committed to making things right again. My wife's parents are sadly not doing so well with the combination of cancer and losing their granddaughters, and my wife and I are trying to be as supportive and helpful to them as possible without jeopardizing the progress we've made in our marriage. My wife's sister is still a bad crap crazy worthless excuse of a human being who actually had the gall to call my wife up and thank her for sorting out the problem with the kids and getting it taken care of, and then asking if we had any money we could possibly spare to lend her. My wife basically told her sister to go F herself, and that unless the money was for an operation to get her tubes tied, to not ever contact her again. All in all, life isn't great, but it is better, and I can definitely see the light at the end of a tunnel for me and my family. Thank you to all the helpful Redditors who cared. Well, OP, I think you guys found a really good solution. Yes, it's not great that the sisters are separated, but now each of them is in a home that would love them and they're gonna get to keep in contact so the bond isn't broken. Also, congratulations to you and your wife for sticking together and getting through this as a family. That is great news. So all that there's left to say is all the best to you both and your family and your nieces. Take care, OP. And it's that time that we've reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. I really did enjoy reading them to you. So if you did, then don't be shy and go ahead and give the video a like. And don't forget to subscribe, or even share this video with people that you might think will enjoy my storytelling. Also, if you have the time, go down to the video description and check out all the links I have for you, from our Discord community to my channel merch. And finally, I'd like to say thank you for watching. It really means a lot to me that you enjoy my videos. And having said all that, I'll see you guys in the next video.